Welcome to On the Spot, Portland Community College's podcast, brought to you by Internal Communications. This is where you get straight answers to the questions employees most want to know. Every episode, we dive into topics submitted by PCC employees. Whether it's about college operations, our community, or amazing people behind the scenes, we're on the spot for you. And the best part? Each episode is short and to the point. On the Spot is perfect for a quick listen during your busy day. New episodes debut every 2 weeks, so make sure to subscribe. I'm Misty Baus, PCC Public Relations Specialist and your host.
This is part 2 of a 2-part podcast about AI. If you haven't heard the first episode, please go back and download part 1 and give it a listen.
Okay, so I want to circle back. There was other aspects that you had talked about regarding that you were going to pick up again.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So at PCC, what we're doing on the academic side, the future is very important, and there's a lot of variability to it. And so I'll only speak to a little bit, but I'll say from the administration side, it's like, hey, how do I run a meeting? What about a note taker that's sitting there in these meetings to help me? Did I understand what just happened? So we have 2 exciting things which are coming online. One is which is here right now, but there is a cost. That's the catch. So right now at PCC, we have something called Google Gemini. Now people are like, well, yeah, I know what Gemini is. It's the AI engine. It comes in 2 flavors. It comes in the free flavor that we get with our license right now as being a subscriber of Google services on behalf of PCC with the account that you have. And then there is the Google Gemini paid for version, which is $30 per user per month. The college does not pick that up directly through central IT, so that's kind of a how do we pay for it? But that's an amazing feature that can go across all of our Google Docs infrastructure, and it also has the ability to take notes. It's that AI note taker. Now, on the other side, the other item that's coming online right now is called Zoom AI. Zoom AI, so Zoom license is partially held by that group that I mentioned earlier, which is, the Director of Learning and Teaching and Innovation. Andy Freed has a lot of work with that. But we are moving to something called Zoom Phone in the next 6 months. We're basically replacing people's phones. They'll still have a handset, but it actually integrates with Zoom, the video conferencing system. Like, well, what does AI have to do anything with that? Well, if you want a AI note-taking companion in these meetings, it's coming with our license baked in to Zoom. So,
Okay, we on campus use Otter AI.
yes.
And whose product is that?
And that's the next part. That is the challenge. So Otter AI, the paid-for version, or Otter AI, the free version. So I'm not asking for anybody to mea culpa and say, this. So this is where security does try and protect us, but it can be at an inconvenience. So we have something called Otter AI and Read AI. These are note-taking apps that started off as free. Well, free, and this is very, very important, just like ChatGPT free, you are guaranteed no privacy. Everything you enter into those systems, that system owns and then can use that information to train their model. That's how they monetize. That's how they make their money off of those things. So if you can imagine from a privacy and, kind of security perspective, free is not free. Now, the other approved version is called Fathom AI. If you pay for that, that is approved by IT because that meets all of our security requirements that we have. And these isn't just IT or PCC saying we want to be secure. These are kind of, in some instances, our legal obligations or our interpretations for legal obligations that we utilize these services. So yeah, they provide an amazing resource. Read AI is a great example. It's kind of almost predatory in that if it gets invited to one meeting, it copies all of the attendees and then starts emailing and says, hey, here's a summary, but sign up for a free Read AI account so that you can see the summary. And then it invites itself to your meetings and then tries to replicate from there. And in their terms of services, they're like, oh, everything's fine. It's like, that iTunes terms of services or those service level agreements that nobody ever reads because they're like 300 pages and it's really hard to understand. But if you look at those, they do tell you, like, no, we pretty much own it. Google lets us get away with not because all of our information with Google is what's called in a private tenant. In other words, they will track it. They will not use it. if it's a PCC owned account. So that's why, and same with Zoom. Both of those, if you're using an official license that's been assigned by the institution or the college, it's already gone through that security approval. Now, Zoom AI is a big deal because that can impact the student experience, that can impact the faculty and teaching instruction. So I am not talking about that we're turning that thing on. That's not what I'm talking about. From an operational standpoint, running just a regular meeting, if you will, that will be an option that will be coming on board in the next 6 months.
Very good. I know the situation. I had it be an aggressive interloper, the Otter AI following me around on my calendar. So I appreciate you guys are looking into this and really making sure that we don't get in any sort of security breach issues.
Exactly. And we're trying to provide clear guidance to help people make those informed decisions because these are amazing tools. We don't want to put barriers up to keep people from being able to use these tools, but we also want to try and put the appropriate, if I could use this term, guardrails on so that we can find ourselves on the right path for empowering our students to learn, community impact, and really continuing to feed into that mission. Part of that is making sure, hey, let's maybe lean in this direction. And yeah, Otter AI and certain components, the free versions, we recommend people please don't use them. But at the same time, people need guidance on what opportunities and options are out there.
Yes, many of us weren't aware of that guidance, or we wouldn't have signed up for it in the first place.
It's okay. Nobody did anything wrong because the point is you're trying to make your life a little bit better, a little bit easier. We wouldn't be working in public sector, especially in higher education, if we didn't want to make the world a little bit better. So the intent is pure. Let your partners in IT and elsewhere help guide that conversation and journey, and we'll try and put ourselves in that place as well to make sure that as AI evolves, we are in those rooms or in some part of that communication stream to kind of make it accessible securely and effectively.
Well, this is perfect because we were wanting to know more. We've had employees write in and ask about what's on the horizon that can transform a student learning experience, or is there AI tutors coming, chatbots, or adaptive learning systems? Is that something you would want to speak?
Yes, I'd be happy to speak with that. So very recently, we actually had Google on campus, and these are employees of Google. Google's moving very hard into higher ed, has been here for a while, and PCC is pretty intertwined with Google. We also have some Microsoft services, but it's more that's a different level of engagement. And what Google demonstrated for us very recently is they did have the ability for AI tutoring. But more importantly to PCC is they have, and this is being used at UCLA right now with real students, they have AI advising. So right now what's really challenging for our students as they try and get in here is, our advisors are amazing. I wish cloning was legal. We would have dozens, if not hundreds more advisors to help guide our students on what path they can or maybe should consider. AI advising can take a lot of that information on the initial steps and really say, somebody can just ask a question like, I want to go into electronics. What are the potential degrees that PCC offers? And instantaneously, the AI will be able to map out, here's the courses you can take, but most importantly, explain, this is how I made that conversation. It will explain the steps and then cite the material where it's coming from. AI used to have a nasty habit of hallucinating imaginary stuff. That was its biggest challenge a few years ago. Still exists, but it's gotten a lot better in that it's taking lessons from higher ed, which is similar to the plagiarism policy. The plagiarism policy is only enforced when you don't cite your material. And so that academic advising cites its material to try and guide, here's your course catalog, here's what we see. However, we still recommend please talk to whoever your advisor is. This is only an initial first step. Transcript analysis is another big one. That is also in use right now. That's, again, UCLA. Google's helped design that. And think of it as an ecosystem of similarly aligned institutions. I would use a hypothetical example. In a perfect world, it would be us, the other community colleges, some high schools, and Portland State. Imagine we have that this course equates to this course, which equates to, so we knew exactly what credits could transfer. Now, we have a lot of that already established, but optimizing that's an intriguing way for students to maybe say, okay, with about 80 to 90% assuredness, I know if I ask it, if my transcript can maybe get me into these programs, there's a AI that can guide that conversation. Now, here's the other important thing. They know how to hear and speak multiple languages.
Wow.
Yeah. So we speak over 200 languages in Multnomah County. I think it's the last stat I saw. And at PCC alone, we're probably over 150 that for folks that would like to, converse in a more comfortable setting. And right now, I'm not saying AI is a perfect replacement for that. It's not. Humans are humans, and we can think and reason and cogitate better. It's an amazing tool to help kind of bridge some of that communication gap and how to help explain very complex class registration topics to a variety of populations.
That is fabulous. And that seems to address. I wanted to ask you about the digital divide and equity and access to AI tools in education. That is a good example right there, a language barrier.
Yes. Digital divide also hits on several different things. I'm going to go back to my internet example. There is still a substantial, sizable part of our student population that does not have consistent access to internet. We are their access to the internet. I believe it's as high as 6, if not, I think it's 6% of our student population does not have consistent or even a cell phone. And that's because there's a cost associated with it. There's whatever life involvement, socioeconomic component that goes into it. AI is no different, unfortunately. So very similar to as governments move to put more and more resources online, there was a significant portion of our population over the age of 60 used to more tactile or more paper-based materials. My mother was a librarian for 46 years in the city of Hillsborough, and so she saw that transformation of people coming in, messing with paper, and then they turned into internet cafes, and they would come up to the technical references desk and say, hey, I need help how to register for Social Security on this site, because it was all digital. They had a divide in being able to have consistent, good access to internet to be able to find the resources that were required for them to be able to have, to get their rights and to get their resources that they had paid into. AI is a very similar boat. Even though AI is incredibly accessible right now, only if you have access to the internet. That is kind of the catch. So there is a digital divide about connectedness that really will impact the vulnerable populations that PCC strives to serve, not just everybody, that really will change and channel. And I don't have an answer for anybody on that one yet.
Okay, besides the internet access, I want to know, like you talked about the large language model or the small language model. Does that affect how hardware is going to be designed? Or chipsets going to get more expensive or less expensive if people want to go out and buy a laptop to get AI as a tool?
It's both, actually. So you're seeing a kind of a massive fork in the road right now, in my professional opinion, where you're seeing a lot of AI optimized chipsets. That's why Intel's kind of struggling a little bit. Intel didn't do so hot in that market, and there's a company called NVIDIA that is way out in front of them right now. Well, NVIDIA's starting to get some more competition. There's a company called ARM, A-R-M, that licenses chip designs, and a bunch of other manufacturers are trying to come up and catch up. Now, the reason why I say, so you're still seeing specialization, and those specializations, they're going to get really, really good, and they'll continue to be expensive. Why? Because there's not a lot of competition in the marketplace right now. You only have 1 or 2 real chip providers that are doing that are powering AI. Well, that's where that DeepSeek was so impressive, is it can run on almost anything. So you can have cheaper chips, cheaper hardware. It may not work as fast, but if you got time, that saves you money. So
Okay, that
you're seeing
sounds
both.
promising. It's
You're
kind
seeing
of both. Okay. So yet to be seen and what
Correct.
kind of competition enters the market. So that brings up, what are some of the ethical and security considerations the college is addressing as it incorporates the AI into its operations regarding student data privacy and academic integrity?
Yeah, so from the security aspect, we do have a policy here that any kind of new software or service that's used, we try and do what's called a security review if it's going to impact the operations of the institution. That I can't cite the exact policy right now, but that is on our website. And we do kind of we do kind of ask the question, how do you hopefully intend to use the data? For an example, this is, I intend to use it for academic instruction. Okay, great. Can we see their terms of services? If students have to sign up for it during the course of their instructions, let's say it's a class teaching a very specific content, and that class requires somebody to sign up for a service. Well, is it a PCC-owned service, or is it, no, it's free, and I'd just like to use it? Well, that has some interesting implications that the Education Advisory Council is continuing to take on with their faculty, because we don't want to take away tools. We want to make sure that if students are signing up for like a third-party service, Well, we have an ethical consideration. Is that third-party service also taking the same kind of considerations for security that we would and how we would protect that student data? I'm using student data a lot in this one, but there's also financial regulations. There's a lot of ethical use there. Right now, the policies are evolving still. Every higher ed institution is grappling with this. Even higher ed institutions that claim them like, hey, here's all our AI policies and this is how we're going to use it. And we're leading the way. University of Michigan is a good example. Well, at the same time, that comes down to what are we communicating to our employees and our students? Have you cited your work? To me, that's kind of that plagiarism policy. That's kind of a lower. But then again, I'm not an academic. I am the operations person that's really good at making this. I want to be your partner, but I'm leaving that conversation to continue to evolve and help us explore what that ethics looks like. Now, another initiative that's happening right now, which is part of the President's Work Plan and the Strategic Plan, is what's called our Data Governance Task Force. That is impacting because a big chunk of our Data Governance Task Force is, well, AI is going to be a part of this whether we're liking it or not. How do we use data? What are we using data for? How is AI going to influence that? Well, what's the value, not as in like how much money can we make? What's the value to us as humans that we're trying to get out of this? The impact. What's the ethics that go into how we are going to use this data? So that is taking shape right now. We've only met twice, and that's part of our plan to try and create a framework that can then be used at PCC to help guide those conversations in a much more larger consensus, not just at a management level, but literally bringing in the faculty experts, bringing in the staff and employee experts that work with that stuff to try and help guide that conversation.
Excellent. We had been hearing about, Brandon, it was when there were bots, I think, that were being used for enrollment that was false. Is there an update on,
Yes.
Are we using AI to fight against that? Or
So yes, and so in reference, we had, think about it, basically fake students registering. These are bad actors out there that are able to either steal someone's identity, create a fully synthetic identity, which means fake, doesn't exist at all, or kind of create or ask somebody to do it on their behalf. That last one doesn't happen as often. And they would sometimes use AI to generate and craft their emails to look really, really good, to make their application materials look really, really good, register for a class, which then would allow them to apply for some type of, Pell Grant or some kind of financial aid and potentially receive that financial aid, but never actually show up to class because there's nobody there. Now, that was not an insignificant amount. Now, that's still ongoing. The update that I can give is that, yes, there is a way from the current company that we do this business with. They have an AI product that we have signed up for. We're already sending all of our student registration for financial aid to this organization. We're now paying for an extra service that just sits there, and this is working with our risk and compliance and our bursar's office, and a lot of collaboration has happened to make this go, which is they're going to start looking at that. I'm like, hey, this one looks pretty suspicious, or these are pretty good. Go ahead, and we think that they'll meet the threshold because we didn't have enough humans to address it for how big as the problem is. I don't want to give too many specific numbers away because it's still in, but what I'm saying is we've made an amazing amount of progress, and we have saved the institution a lot of money and a lot of headache and a lot of heartache, really making sure that these rosters are authentic, for that these students do exist, that it isn't a bad actor. Now, back to the last summer to a different initiative. So that was a fake student thing, but there was a mention of the phishing campaigns. Oh, those phishing campaigns. Haven't they gotten so good?
Yes.
They will clone our website, make it look like you're logging into the exact same log, because they're using AI engines to basically say, copy this and make it look like, PCC would use or institute some other name. Now, what we did on top of this is we bought an extra security service that now sits on top of all of our email and a lot of our systems, powered by AI. So we have a lot of behind-the-scenes AI that sits there, and kind of think about PCC's information footprint as kind of like a giant bubble, if you will, and all of the stuff that makes PCC unique for running classes, doing all the information that's within that bubble of our knowledge domain. Outside of that, we now have an AI wrapper, if you will, sitting there kind of looking, kind of poking around like, hey, is there a hole over here? Nope. Okay. Pushing bad actors away that are trying to come in and, get into the network, get in, looking for suspicious behavior. Like, is this employee really logging in at 3 a.m. from a time zone over in, I don't know, Japan? Maybe not. And so it looks for suspicious and anomalous behavior in ways that humans can't. So that gets back to that repetitive task. What are those repetitive tasks? So our security professionals here at PCC, information security, have a lot of data they have to sort through. It's more data than any human can look at. There is AI that sits there and kind of sifts through all the information and go, this is an event that you might want to look at right now. And it can also help us mitigate that. In other words, it can act if we let it. So we have a certain level of trust. So if we see somebody's trying to actively hack our network, we have the ability where the AIs go, I'm 99% sure this is a bad thing. And within a millisecond, it can turn that access off or quarantine that system so that it doesn't spread further, like what happened to some of our other higher ed peers locally, where they were taken down by ransomware events, which were AI powered.
Wow. Is there anything you'd like to add that I haven't asked you yet?
I think we've done a good job of covering quite a bit. I think I'm really excited about the future that we have with AI, cautiously optimistic at the same time, and what it can impact for the digital equity aspect. Now, not just accessibility, but it's that component that we're going to be able to help empower students in ways that I don't think we've even fully dreamed of yet. We're still finding ways in how we're making work easier for the employees that we have. We have so many employees that work really hard and are doing great work, but there's just a lot of it. And as we know, with our fiscal sustainability plan, how do we make smart choices with the amazing people that we have and give them the tools that they need? And I think the future we're going to see a lot. So I'd love to come back in a year from now and say, hey, all right, this is how we did, but all right, let's see what met contact with reality.
And things change so fast.
Exactly.
I realize there's been a lot of fear around AI, and I think this is very powerful knowledge to have, and maybe people will see that this tool is really there, and it's what you do with it that affects the outcome.
Exactly. Good words.
So I want to thank you for coming to On the Spot and sharing all about AI and where we're at the college, and we look forward to having you back, maybe sooner than a year.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, and all I can say is let's go Panthers.
For those of you listening, thanks for tuning in to our second season of On the Spot at PCC. Future bi-weekly episodes bring guests from across the college to talk about the work they're supporting and answer your questions. I'm Misty Baus, and it's been a pleasure. We'll talk again next time.